All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here today with artist Shawn Faust, who I'm super excited to have on the show, not least of which because his art is setting the stage here at Junction Cafe over the summer, and it's been a real joy to be living with your paintings here, at least for the last few weeks. So, Shawn, welcome. Thanks for coming, and I have to give credit to Sue Olivio, who made the connection, who met you at the Chad's Ford Elementary Art School
That's
show,
correct.
right?
Yes.
Which you've been involved in for a number of years, right?
That's correct.
Probably,
Yeah.
I think, probably one of the favorites, given some of your subject matter, right?
I was honored to be a featured artist one year. So
Yeah. And it makes a lot of sense because you're kind of a master of the landscape, of equestrian life, of country life in some ways, right? I mean, you got a wide range of experience, but even reading your artist statement and understanding a little about your process, like really connecting with nature is a big part of it, right?
absolutely. I mean, that's basically it's my natural consequence of affection. That's the animals, the environment, human nature, reciprocity. As a kid, I just love nature. So it's basically my biggest inspiration.
Where'd you grow up?
I was born in Salisbury, Maryland, and came to Delaware when I was 4, in the Newark area, Pike Creek, and then settled in Bear.
So when you say, as you're always into nature, like what kind of stuff were you doing as a kid?
Actually, loved camping.
Okay.
My dad, that was a big thing that we went camping. I actually did a couple years in Scouts.
All right.
As a career tenderfoot.
All right.
but I just absolutely loved that. And the big thing for me was, the summer camp. Now, I used to think the summer camp was all summer. It was 10 days maybe, 2 weeks, but,
I'm getting ready to go to summer camp with my oldest
best.
this week, so his
best.
first time. We're pumped. So you probably did you get art merit badge?
Yeah, well, did they have art?
I don't know.
I don't know if they had that.
I think
that would be great. Yeah.
It'd be funny if you really struggle with art merit badge, and then you later become a professional artist. So scouting, camping, being outdoors. But a lot of people would say they love the outdoors, but to have a strong connection and relationship the way that you do, which inspires your art, is another level, right? So how would you describe that? Like what's going on when you're engaging with nature for the purposes of a painting?
Well, it to me, in the world of portraiture, like when I do a landscape, it's really still in the mindset of doing a portrait.
Yep.
And in history, the portrait is basically or is a sign of honoring something. And so to me, a lot of that depicting nature is, again, my reverence that I have for nature and trying to capture that in the way that I feel it and see it and experience it. So I'm really big into art as being an experience. And so when I can capture that, I basically just want to share that experience. And so, in a way, that's honoring it. And the animals come into play because, to me, that's also a portrait of the animal. And, I feel that it's a way to revere and honor the animal as well. And we exist in nature as being the main subject, and everything we look at are kind of objects. But for me, being in nature, we're also objects in that environment for nature's sake. So that back and forth, like how do we feed off of nature? One of my favorite sayings is that Cezanne, when he went into the woods to paint a landscape, he felt that nature was watching him. Wow. So he kind of had that feeling. So, and I just, I can relate to that. And when I, meet like a lot of the portraits I do of animals, it's all about the eye contact. And so it's face to face with nature. And so I feel that I'm being observed just as much, through my subjects as I observe them.
Speaking of the animals, the horses, the cattle, the cows, the other subjects that you're painting, they're not like a human sitting for a portrait, they're not taking direction, right? Like they're wily sort of subjects in a way, right? I mean, so how do you work with
That's a good question.
an animal that's like, because you get them, you know, and a lot. I mean, sometimes there's movement, you know, but other times it's like the piece behind you, Red Rover. They're completely they're looking at you straight on, you know. They're still. There's a gaze, you know. How do you? And they didn't stand like that.
Fortunately, you know, the camera is a wonderful tool for artists. Okay. I'll do studies when I have particularly, like, let's say a commission. I will do some field studies from life, and to get the mannerisms, the weight distribution, kind of notes on bone structure. But the camera is going to record all that as well. But I still, if I'm there to experience it, I go off on my notes and my research from life, but I use the camera as much as I can, you know, to do that. But fortunately, many of the animals, especially horses, will give you, you know, the first 10 minutes of curiosity, their time. So they're very engaging, and they will pose for you. And, you know, like the cows behind me, I call that the bovine greeting, because once they're always eating grass, and once you approach them, head up, they look at you, you know, are you a threat or no threat? Obviously, at the point where they feel like I'm not a threat, they go back to eating. So, but they're curious, you know, so that's that straight on, ears are pinning you, you know, straight. And same thing with the horses, will come up to you and give you their time, and, you know, they're checking you out, and then they go do their thing. So that's fine. That's when I find the best time to kind of study them from life. Other than that, I chase them with the camera.
That's awesome. You know, it's funny too. We had a lady here on the show yesterday who does equine therapy, and she was talking about, you know, her relationship to, you know, to horses and how they talk back to her, and she's, you know, there's like a real dialogue, and if she's rushing around, they don't like it.
No.
And they'll kind of like give her some feedback, and then she has to kind of check herself. And
most animals will react the way you're reacting. You know, they'll sense that. You know, they say they'll sense fear, and they sense a lot of other things as well.
Yeah, it's wild.
And that's one of the reasons, I'm glad you brought that up, because, you know, studying the human portrait, you know, it's all about the eyes. And in 97, I believe, I went and studied with Daniel Green one summer. And the last day of the workshop, he told the students, he said, you know, remember, it's all about the eyes and paint from life. And if you're tired of doing a self-portrait, nobody's going to sit for you. Go find a cow, a horse, or a deer and paint from life. And not really a deer on a wall, you know, go to a petting zoo or something like that. But when he said, you know, a horse, it was just like a light bulb went up in my head. And I remember the quote that, you know, owners and trainers of horses, or people that know horses, always talk about their eyes and being able to read the personality of that horse through the eyes. Like the horse has a very confident eye, or you know, aggressive, or even a compassionate eye. And I thought, you know, humans, we can use every muscle in our face to give off that, you know, our emotions. But horses really, they do. You know, I watch their ears a lot. That tells you a lot. But for the most part, you know, you can sense that for the eyes. So I started doing headshots and just studying the eyes of horses, and you know, and try to. I always thought it was interesting to make my notes and then go back to the owners and talk about that. So, you know, I really felt like this. In fact, the business cards that I have, that one horse is Willie, and he has a very concerned and compassionate eye. And everybody says, yeah, it's the trainer's horse. And he actually watches all the horses before they go to the track. He watches them shed row, just warming up, you know, hot walking, and kind of like looking at the horses going, you know, you can't go out to the track without me. I'm your trainer. How you feeling today? And, you know, as they go by. So he has a very attentive and compassionate eye. So I think you can definitely sense that. If you're around them a lot, you know, you can pick that up.
That's awesome. I you know, I'm not around. I mean, my neighbors have a horse farm, and we're around their horses a bit, but still kind of a newbie and kind of getting the feel for them a little bit. But I understand, you've been, best in show at the Devon Horse Show and in Lexington, and there's the horse community, the horse people like your work quite a bit, it seems, right? I mean, there's been a great support, from that community for you as an artist. Is that right?
Been very blessed that horse community has accepted my work, enjoy my work.
How did that happen? I mean, do you ride, or like, was it like?
I was a kid that always wanted a pony, so in my subconscious, I knew that there was a connection that I would have to horses, but it came about, again, from working with Daniel Green when he says, go home and paint cow, horse, or deer. And, I live near Chesapeake City, and there's just miles and miles of horse fence. And I said, I think this might be my opportunity to write a letter, drop it in the mailbox to all the farms, and say, listen, I'm very, I introduce myself as an artist, a portrait artist, and I'm interested in painting the eyes, studying, doing headshots. And a couple farms, one in particular, Northview Stallion Station, responded immediately and said, sure, come by the farm and, be more than happy for you to take a look at the horses. And that's how it started. They, Mr. Golden, Richard Golden, was the owner, and he had said that, they're thoroughbreds, so they're kind of high-strung. We don't want you to get hurt, and we don't want the horses to get hurt, so, and I had any intention of going on the other side of the fence, but he didn't know me. He didn't know how much of a horseman I was.
Yeah.
And so I just stood on one side of the fence and basically did my research. And he says, number two, I'd like to see the work when you're done. Just curious.
Fair enough.
And so, the first piece I brought him, he said, I'll take it.
Really?
It wasn't even his horse. And unfortunately for him, but it ended up being fortunate for me, is that piece, I had a gallery at the time, and I just framed it. And I had a customer that came in. Well, he ended up buying it, but I showed it to Mr. Golden. And after seeing it, Mr. Golden asked me, can you do a whole horse? And I said, like everything, I was cut my teeth as an illustrator, and whatever they ask you, can you do this? It's like, yes. And then you go, if you can't, you figure out how to do it, right? So I said, sure, the whole body, yeah. I'm interested in the head. And so Polish Numbers came out, and he said, I want roughly a 6x4 foot painting of Polish Numbers, which is the grandson of Northern Dancer. Just a great sire. And word of mouth, trainers and owners, it's a breeding farm in Chesapeake City. And when owners would go visit that farm, and, they knew Mr. Golden and so forth, they would bring their mares to breed. And they would see the work. It was in the conference room and so forth. And so I was getting calls. And then eventually some trainers, owners, they knew that I did people. So they said, you know what, I'd love to have Pat Day or Mike Smith or John Velasquez on the horse. And, at the time they said, I've done it before. I've had artists do that, but either the jockey, I wasn't happy with the jockey, the horse, and so forth. But they said that if you could do people and horses well, I think you'll do okay. And so I've always been doing people's portraits. And so that was, and I treat the horse just like a person's face. It's very different. It's not just a horse is a horse, and you just, have different markings.
Sure.
They're structurally, they're very common, just like the human head. But there are little nuances,
Sure.
You get one little thing that might be off, and you lose the likeness. Well, I apply that to horses as well. And so owners were very happy about that. They,
you can tell if you're used to looking at the animal every day. Your eye is so trained that if there's something off, even if you can't place it, usually with the bone structure or something, it's, you know that it's not right. So it is so difficult to do a portrait, whether a pet or a person.
Yeah, and I've had friends that are portrait artists that says, I gave up doing horses because the horse people are way too particular and too demanding. And my joke is I did have a client that painted his grandchildren, quite a few of them, and a horse. And honestly, the reaction I got with his grandkids
harder
was
on
just like, "Hey, that's great, that's great, right?" You know, and I probably could have made one of the kids that was a brunette a blonde, and I'm being, you know, a little
I gotcha.
exaggerating, but you know, they're like, "That's great, that's great," you know. But the horse, it was like, "Okay, hold on, let me see, let's take it outside and compare the horse," and they're like, "That's great, wow, that's," you know. And it was just, you could just see that there was more pressure on getting the horse just right.
Animals, you know, we have an interesting relationship with them, don't we? It's like they're not as complicated in some ways, right? You know, a kid could run you through all kinds of trouble, but no, it's an interesting a story how you got into that space, you know,
Yeah.
and that's years ago now, and now that's you know, so popular in those places. And talk to me a little bit about you know, the Chad's Ford show and kind of how you got tied in up here, and you know, because it seems like a natural, you know, fit. I mean, you're not that far away, sort of living, but you know, this is certainly horse country, you know, and you know, and not only that, you know, just a very rich natural area to live in. So I'm sure there's some spaces around here that probably inspire you, or that you like to visit, or not even necessarily to paint, but just, you know, kind of living close by.
Oh, this area is wonderful. You know, I come up here for inspiration just for landscape, you know, and another thing is other than painting animals, I paint light. I just study light and light on form. And I have always said it's not that far away, but the light seems different up here sometimes, you know. But it's just the landscape is wonderful, and it is horse country, you know. So quite a few of my clients were in the, you know, the Devon, Wayne, Mainline, Chad's Ford, Pennsylvania area. And so, you know, it was just a natural fit to see if I could get involved in the Chad's Ford Elementary show. And I think maybe 10 years ago, maybe. It's been a while. It's been a while, yeah. And I mean, the history of that show is just tremendous, you know. And so, yeah, just very fortunate that just seemed like it was a natural fit, you know.
Yeah, no, I know it's we've done a couple stories on it, and for you guys that are listening to this, if you get Junction the magazine, Shawn was featured in the May issue in Wayne and Kelly McGill's home piece that they purchased for above the fireplace. Nice fit, and you're not just doing. I mean, you know, like the piece behind me, you're kind of blurring into some abstract stuff too, right? I mean, it's not like you got kind of a wide range in a way.
Yeah, it's very important for, I think, any artist is to kind of like find out what you don't know about art, you know, to always, you know, just try things new, live on that edge of you know, the unknown, you know, and that's really where we learn. But this particular piece here was shortly after I attended UArts, University of the Arts in Philly, for a master's program. And so that was definitely very contemporary, non-representational, 3 years for me. And that's the exact fit that I wanted. You know, coming from, you know, a traditional classical style portraiture, I wanted to, you know, explore things that I've been enjoying with other art, especially, you know, I go to museums, you know, I would spend hours in front of the Rubens and the Rembrandts, and then eventually I'd walk by the Impressionism, and I'm like, you know what? Every time I go back there, I don't even come out of that room. So, and then it got into the Rauschenberg and, you know, the abstract art, and it was one of those things where I didn't know enough about it, or I was very curious, and that was a big thing for me, is that curiosity is really the beginning journey for art of any type. And so that curiosity just kind of gave myself permission to do whatever. You know, I knew where I came from, and I knew things that I liked, and it was all about the surface, the paint, the color, which I work with in a different method, you know, in classical ways. What's that going to do? How does that communication or that dialogue with the canvas, how will that evolve if I kind of take a completely different approach and just make a mark, not really knowing where it's going to go? It's not pre-planned, I don't know. and then respond to that and have that dialogue. And really, you're just so connected with the piece, you know.
Yeah.
And so, you know, some of my favorite art is where it exists in between. So in my bio, I talk about, you know, that right and left hemisphere of the brain, where the right side is just nothing but senses. You know, your hearing, your sight, your taste, sound, everything comes in, and your body has no idea what it is until your left side of the brain says, that's a bird, that's a tree, that's blue, yellow, whatever. And then it's assigned a title, you know. And so as you experience things your whole life, basically that's that apperception is that what we've all experienced, and it's just recall. So if I can tap into the right side of the brain and turn off the left side, that's the control, and just kind of just enjoy the process of just reacting to the canvas. There's a lot of joy with that, and that's what Picasso mentions. It took him a lifetime to learn how to paint like a kid again. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but, you know, I didn't realize.
So you're having a blast in the studio.
Well, yeah.
You jamming out to anything? Like, what do you...
That's fun. Music is a big part, you know, and that's another thing is that everything from the thoughts you have at that moment you're putting a mark down to the music that you have, and, you know, the light, everything, every experience goes into that. So, you know, yeah, music, anything from country. Sometimes I do like energy music, you know, like you gym workout, you know, you put that on, and then sometimes in the evenings I'll do a little bit of classical. It depends on, you know, if I'm looking at a white canvas and I'm ready to go at it, I mean, I may put in some Van Halen or something, you know, and just have a blast, you know.
What else is your studio like?
Well, it's attached to the back of my house, and so it's attached to me 24/7. So it's one
Just
of those
pop in there once in a while.
Yeah, and almost too much.
Really?
Yeah, it's like, and I really don't consider it work, but, you know, when it comes on the weekends and things like that, I'm sure my wife is just like, come on, get
out of the studio.
Let's do something, right?
Yeah.
You know, so, and I've got a big show coming up in Saratoga, so I'm in there, you know, as much as I can. I'm just starting new paintings. And,
are you?
Yeah.
How many are you trying to get ready?
I'm trying to go up there with about 15.
Okay.
15 to 18 new ones. You know, some 36 by 36s. So I go up next 2 weeks, about 2 weeks.
Wow.
So
that's exciting.
Yeah.
So if people around here, like, they want to check you out, I mean, obviously they can go look you up online, all that. Are there other places that you frequently pop up?
Four main shows a year up in this area. It's either the Devon or the Chadds Ford.
Okay.
Then it's up north in Saratoga in August. And then a lot of stuff is just online.
And you're close enough that people can just connect with you and meet up, or, you know, they can have conversations with you. I mean, how has it changed, you know, the last year, 2 years with all the people? Are people... How is you know, the pandemic? You know, I feel like I'm so tired of this question, but, like, I know an art gallery and they've had their best year ever. Like, it's like people are home, staring at their walls, and they're realizing that they want better stuff on the walls. So they're buying more art than ever.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, the focus is with the house and so forth. But I mean, the funny thing is that if you tell an artist to, you know, you have to quarantine. I've been doing that my whole life.
Yeah, that's how you are.
My studio.
Same with me. My wife, we have 4 kids. She's stay-at-home mom. Like, we've already been quarantined.
Yeah.
We're, you know, but it's, you know, part of the reason I like to do this and work with artists so much, not only in the magazine, but really we probably had more artists popping in here on the show than anyone, is because, you know, I'm in a lot of people's homes. People have nice homes. Even, it doesn't matter what your home's like. As many talented artists as we have, and as people that are kind of giving it a go, either professionally or even as a hobbyist, there's really no excuse. There's very few excuses to really have some manufactured home goods print on your wall. You know, I mean, it's kind of like you could get a friend who, if you want something like that, to just paint the tree for you. You know, and it's an original. You know, and I think people underestimate the impact on the selection of their art in their home. And I don't want to overstate it, but I think if your home is filled with literally like manufactured art from home goods, that's a problem. You know, and listen, we've done the experiment. Like, we've put art in people's homes, and they've come back for them, and they've come back to us and they've said, wow, like, I forgot how much like real art would actually speak to me, to our family, to our house. Because you have some homes around here, it's like the last owner that was full of fine art, and then they come in and they don't really have it, or they don't know where to go or whatever, and they fill it with other stuff, and it changes the whole house. You know, and interior designers hate it. They're like, you know, they just cringe when they see it. And there's really no excuse, because there's really so many talented artists in this area that are painting at really any price range, within reason. I think one thing people have to do is realize this is something you're going to look at every day. And you literally spend $10 a day on coffee. You know, add it up, put a year's worth of coffee on the wall. You know what I mean? Like, do something real, like honor an artist, like you know, the creative economy and artists are worth supporting.
Bless you.
Like at like the highest level, right? Like, I don't even, you can't even have that debate with me.
Personally, you know, if there's a point, I collect art. I collect other artists. There is, you know, it's not just the type of artwork that I paint, but there is something that is magical and it's personal. When a piece speaks to you, you know, you enjoy that. You know, you just, there's some artists out there, it doesn't matter what they paint, I would like to get my hands on it. You know, it's just something about everything about that artist or the type of work, and it's a win-win. You know, I just love supporting artists. I had a gallery for 12 years.
You're in it.
I was an artist. I know the struggles of trying to get gallery representation as well as trying to represent artists. And, you know, there's nothing like personalizing, you know, and having a piece of original. And it doesn't have to be huge. It's amazing what just a nice, and I've had clients that, you know, waited a while and they've gotten an original and they've taken everything else, start taking everything down, because for some reason they're just like, that's it. Once you get one, they just want to start that collection, and it's wonderful.
It tends to kind of expose, and again, you know, I think you can mix things and match. Yeah. We have originals we found at, you know, I've even popped in, sometimes we're traveling into like an antique shop and find something that, you know, or you know, certainly locally it's fun to be able to go and say that we have a piece that, you know, is painted by someone in, you know, in the area that we know, and you know, becomes a real focal point, you know, in the house. So yeah, you're certainly an interesting artist in the sense of not only been at it, you know, a long time, but having the gallery and the framing business. Like, you've seen lots of sides of the equation, and certainly, you know, art and collectible art is changing so rapid. Like, you have, like, I look back at it, like at the whole thing right now, and I'm like, man, galleries, if they're not doing something to help build relationships and really give distribution, they're going to be gone. Yeah. Right. And then you know, and then you have all this stuff that's going on with, you know, NFTs, going for, you know, or pieces, or, you know, from people that no one's even heard of, going for millions of dollars. I just saw one, this lady from like Poland or something, and it's like the Wild West. Like, art is insane. You know, then there was the guy last year that taped the banana to the wall. Yeah. Did you see that guy? Yeah. Right. And it's like,
somebody did a painting of a banana taped to the wall, and so that. So yeah.
Have you done any bananas taped to the wall? I might want to think about it.
No, and I'm due for a still life, so.
All right, maybe I'll tape a banana to the wall. Yeah. I got pots screwed to the wall over here.
I like that. I've been checking that out.
No, I love the arts. I mean, in fact, I'm planning to do, you know, like studio classes here for like a small group of people. Just get like a model or something and just open it up and have fun, because it's so fun to me, the process, and really learning to look.
I'm glad you said that. I also teach.
Do you?
It's my 5th year at Del Tech down in Dover. I'm I'm an adjunct instructor for the drawing and the visual communications. And so First thing I say, it's drawing is about learning to see.
So
That's that.
I'm talking about.
I'm so glad you said that.
No,
I mean,
I have 4 kids, and the older 2, they all love to create. You know, and they're so different in their creative process. And my oldest, you know, I'm like, all right, you're 7. We got to advance the technique here.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to be doing, you know, the circle with the lines as limbs and all that. And so I said, like, okay, what are you seeing here? And he'll draw his thing, and I'll be like, but doesn't it, you know, it's actually curved. And it starts firing, and he's like, yeah, you know, and it's like, it's really like a philosophical exercise in a way.
Yeah.
But once you start to realize that not what you know is there, but what do you actually see? Like, if you could convert your actual vision.
That's turning the left side off.
It's turning, that's what you're saying.
Because basically you say draw an apple. If you know, students, if you put a still life, you put an apple, they'll look at it and say, it's an apple. And then they start to draw the symbol of the apple. And it's not the same. It's not that apple. Okay, and it overrides. What we know tends to control what we see.
It feels funny at first too.
It is. It's a muscle that you gotta.
It
you gotta
feels
train.
funny. I know that, you know, you're like, all right, I feel like this is shorter than it should be, but it starts to kind of come together, and it's you know, it's super fun. And you know, we have to talk a little bit of Wyeth, since we're in sort of Wyeth country too. But you know, he was an illustrator and someone who worked with his kids and tried to sort of. He saw, like, you know, he looked at sort of the way we were teaching and said, you know, okay, I want to pull him out of that, you know. And actually, people don't know this. I mean, I love I think public education has a lot of great benefits. But he pulled his kids out of Chad's Ford Elementary School.
Is that right?
Yeah, he said, look, the creative, like right as a kid is able to start exploring and being creative, you know, we put him into a system, you know, which, you know, sometimes can hamper that, right? And so it's hard when you're working with kids that are so different and come at things so differently to kind of bring that out. You know, it takes a lot of one-on-one attention. So certainly parents can do that, and he was in a position where he could do that with his kids. Yeah. But we see the benefits.
Oh yeah.
You know, and so how about your kids? Any of them artists?
The oldest started off as a graphic designer, and wanted to do, actually, I think, from T-shirt designs, and then he wanted to design cars, you know, the Bugattis and stuff like that. And then his path went engineering. Now he's all entrepreneur and in the business school. My youngest son, same thing. It's kind of graphic, not the fine art side, you know, like doing a still life. You know, it was more design and color and edges and things like that and shapes. And it's interesting because I never took the time to actually teach them to paint, because I wanted them, if they came around to it, because they saw me do it all day, all the time. And they do. They're very curious. And but if they had questions or wanted to try it, then I would invite them in, and we did it a couple times, and that was it. But I wanted them not to do any of that because I was doing it.
Sure.
But they did mimic. In my studio, I had this big window, which was great for young kids and, you know, trying to paint and watch them. But I looked over one time, and I had a habit of, I kind of step back from my easel, and I just do this. And I do a lot of looking at the artwork, my next move. And my son, we had this little easel with craft paper and crayons, you know, let him do. Well, he used to do, and I had a maul stick with me, and he picked up, I think it was a little plastic golf club, and he used that as a maul stick. I caught him one time. I looked over, and he was just doing this. He was mimicking. I guess he thought that's part of being an artist, is to kind of do this.
He was doing what you're doing, yeah.
And there's nothing on his paper. I don't know. It was really cute to see that. So, you know, the kids are very impressionable. Like, I was 4 years old when my grandfather took my older brother out, which is only 13 months older than me. He took him out to do a little plein air study. He was a self-taught artist, you know, retired, and he came over one day, and he just said, come on, we're going to do a plein air painting. Or first we're going to do a sketch. So I was just a tag-along, 4 years old. And
you remember it?
Oh, yeah, like it's clear as day. He took him out. It was my cousin's property, and they had a little pond and a big willow tree and a shed. And the first thing he said to my brother, he says, now, to be an artist and to paint something, you need to paint something that inspires you. So here we are in outdoors. What is interesting to you? In other words, what do you want to maybe go up and study more? Something intriguing.
Yep.
And, of course, he looks around. He goes, the yellow shed. So we go up there. So he sits in front of the yellow shed with the willow tree. And my grandfather says, we're going to do a little sketch first. And he took out a brand new piece of charcoal, and he broke it. I think my psyche broke, because as a kid, you're not supposed to break anything, right? He snapped that in about an inch long. He pressed it on the paper sideways and just went right like that. He goes, there's the trunk of the tree. Well, that's mass. Okay, we do outlines, you know, and so when he did that, he's painting with mass, and I thought, you can do that?
Yeah.
And then he pressed on the paper, and he just twisted. I mean, I remember it was like yesterday. And those were the leaves. You just press and twist, you know. And then the biggest thing for me was then when he drew that line, that horizon line that stopped at the trunk of the tree and then continued past that, and then the box for the shed, all of a sudden the tree came forward from the horizon line.
Yeah.
It was the best magic show that I ever seen. So I
Pretty
went
cool.
home, and I had a little sketchbook. I took all my box of crayons, I unwrapped them, the paper, and I broke them all. And I would walk around anytime I could and says, you want to see some magic, you know, and
That's
just draw
cool.
things, shapes and overlapping shapes. So that is very impressionable to me, you know, and I think that started a deep love of drawing.
And then you found
It was
Bob
drama.
Ross. And we were
Yeah,
like all
everybody.
of us, we were
Happy
transfixed. Like, holy cow.
Oh, absolutely.
Look what he's going to do. No,
Yeah.
it's so fun. I mean, actually, to
Yeah.
watch those drawing videos. You know, now we have so many on YouTube you can watch. It's
Oh,
incredible.
YouTube is great.
Or street artists. I mean, it's transfixing. You know,
It is.
I lived in Key West, where you'd get guys with spray cans that could do stuff that you would never even imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, just incredible. So,
Yeah.
well, this has been fun, and you know, I look forward to having you back. I look forward to having you in the magazine. We'll certainly, you know, just down the road, just down the pike a little bit, so we can have you up for a visit. And thank you for sharing a little bit about your world with us. And you know, lots of folks up here already know you, but certainly some more. You know, we'll get a chance to know you through this. So I appreciate you taking the time for it.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, that's all, folks. And until next time, we'll see you again.